My name's George, and I edit the Imperfects. I grew up on Ngunnawal country, studied on Bundjalung country, and am now living and working on Wurundjeri country. On behalf of the Imperfects, we acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and we extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The rich storytelling history of the world's oldest living culture is what we proudly pay homage to when we share stories on the Imperfects.
Hello, everyone. So no British introduction for this one because this is part 2 of our Academy of Imperfection.
I thought you were going to make up a reason why British was unavailable to do that.
Yeah, he's doing Cotty's ads.
We can only afford him once.
It goes to Cotty's. Makes a cordial that I like best. Actually, it's probably more like that. Makes the cordial that I like best.
Started as Russell Brand, ended up as...
picks the fruit that goes to Cotty's. Yeah, that's what he's doing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good on him.
Yeah, not available today. But no, the reason, like I was about to say, is that this is part 2 of the Academy of Imperfection that we've had with Ben Crowe.
It's an addendum.
It is an addendum, Josh.
Yeah, it's an addendum to part 1.
Addendum with the phenom.
With the phenom that is Ben Crowe. So yeah, if you haven't listened to part 1, it'd be really, really good, actually almost crucial to go back and listen to part 1 first, where there's a link in the show notes of this episode. And Hugh, let's remind everyone what Ben Crowe did talk about in that part 1.
There was a lot in it, but if I could try and summarise the whole hour into 20 seconds, I would say he looked at the inner critic versus the inner fan. So often we view our own life through the inner critic as opposed to the inner fan. He talked about our not enoughness, the area in our life where we just don't feel like we're enough, we're not worthy, and how when we do that, when we show up from that place, we sort of, when we're meeting people or in relationships, we create these vertical relationships where we should be really creating horizontal relationships with other human beings. He helped us to identify courage mantras and talked about what they actually are.
Yeah, and what we're about to listen to as we pick up for part 2 is you sort of talk to us about like reframing our story, like our life story, by tapping into like positive memories from our past.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get back to our lecturer for today, Benjamin Crowe in the Academy of Imperfection.
Can you guys find a memory when you, I don't know, played and had fun with others? Yeah, it might have been recently. I know you do it as a podcast, but just find a memory off the top of your head. What would you come up with?
I don't know why it's going to me, but after a wedding about 4 years ago, we played a game of cricket the next day with all my mates, and Beautiful. It was so much fun. Yeah, it was like being a little kid again.
Totally, yeah. Thank you.
I go back to, for some reason, I go to my earliest memory of like play, which is one of my earliest, which is, in fact, last time you were here, I spoke about playing cricket with Dad in the backyard, but I realised a memory I had soon after that was we had a swimming pool. We were lucky to have a swimming pool at home growing up, and when on really hot days, dragonflies would do laps, as in not they weren't doing freestyle.
Wow, now that's an imagination.
Oh, wow. I mean, surely they'd be doing butterfly.
No, that
was a setup.
That
was too easy.
I did pause because I knew you had something great to say, but they would fly 3 or 4 centimetres above the surface of the water, and they just go round and round and round, and Georgia and Josh and I would try and jump on them. We never got close to them. We'd miss them by 2 or 3 metres, but you'd be near the pool, miss it, jump back out again to get it the next time it came around, and we would do that for hours, and that was an incredible memory.
Love that.
Yeah.
Right.
I about 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, I made I shot like a sort of a short film with some friends, and it's called Loophole, which you can watch it. But
with Rick Davies and
with Dave, Rick and Dave, yeah, and then Ben and Tom shot it as well. But that when we shot that, it was the first thing I'd ever made with no intention of ever releasing it. Like we filmed it, and I wrote all the sketches, and the intention was play and process, and it is just some of the most fun I've had in my life because there was no pressure of anyone ever seeing it. It was, I mean, yes, we eventually released it because I eventually had like this monthly video thing that I was doing, and that was one of them. But when we shot it, I truly had no intention of ever releasing it. I mean, thought maybe I would, but I didn't know what I'd do with it. So it was just purely making things for fun. Yeah,
Beautiful.
It's incredible.
Now, let me ask you a couple of other questions while I've got you in the room together. Can you find a memory when you helped someone else?
Well, actually, I was just, Josh and I were at Will and Woody today we do like a regular segment with them, and Tom is one of the guys on the show. Well, he presses the buttons on the show, and I've known Tom for a few years, and he told me, I had a coffee with him a couple of years ago, and this was actually right after we'd shot Loophole, this thing, and I was all about process over product. I was just like, it's life-changing epiphany. And I was speaking to him about that because he was at a point in his career where he was curious about, what motivated me to make the changes I was making.
Yeah.
And we had this like hour and a half coffee, and I think, I thought it was good, and it was a really great chat. But then just today he said, he told me how it like absolutely changed his life, like that conversation.
Wow.
You Ben Crowed him.
I absolutely crowed him. and I didn't intend to do that. That wasn't the intention. It was just a chat. But clearly it resonated with him enough that he was able to make changes, and that was a pretty amazing feeling, actually.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a homeless lady at the Queen Victoria Market. I go there with my kids on Sundays, and we will always stop. We all stop and give her something or talk to her, and that's a time that I don't know if we help her, but we definitely, it's a feeling like we are trying to bring a bit of light to her life. Yeah.
Josh, can you think of something?
I don't know why. I can't think of a time I've helped anyone.
That is not true.
I don't know why.
You've got kids, you know that.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I can tell you that all of my stories are revolving around weddings at the moment.
We've just been to one.
Yeah, I've had like 3 in a few weeks.
Yeah.
2, but it's a small thing. But we're at a wedding. Soph and I both had a pretty big night, and one of our children got up at 5:45, and I thought, I'm going to get up and walk the Augie around and let Soph sleep in.
Perfect. Yeah. Very good.
That deserves a clap.
I'm glad you said that too, by the way. Can you find a memory now when you were helped by someone?
Well, I mean, mine is when I met you, Ben, and I was. I mean, it's sort of like a combination of you, Ben, and Hugh, because it was sort of like a team effort, I guess. Not that you were working as a team, but
who was Batman and who was Robin?
I don't choose Batmans and Robins. But Ben, when I met with you, and you told me all the things I absolutely needed to hear at that point in my life, and it just resonated and changed my perspective, changed everything. And that coffee and what came after it.
Tom Webster helps me. He's my tour manager. He knows what he does for me. He's unbelievable. He helps me so much whenever I'm out and doing shows. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, beautiful.
Can I say you as well? Because it's the most recent. We had a...
No.
I think you want to, though.
I do.
Just say it. It's great. Don't listen to what he wants, because he's just being modest.
Being humble, yeah.
No, well, the courage mantra that we talked about before helped me so much on the weekend, and I really didn't expect it to help me as much as it did. So, again, you and the mantra.
Right. It's the recency bias going on here. Lastly, can you find a memory when you guys were part of a team, either at work or at school, and you contributed to that team in, even if it was the most seemingly, insignificant, small way? Can you think of something?
Well, I think I'm going to maybe steal other people's, but I feel like this podcast team, all of us that work on it, I feel like I contribute a little bit, but it's not all about me. It's a nice team.
Yeah, I just came from a meeting with our school partnership managers at the Resilience Project. There's like 8 of them, and they go out to schools and present. And we were discussing and exploring what makes a really good presentation. It was a really nice session. So,
Thank you.
I mean, the thing coming to mind is, I've worked in TV for a bunch of years, and we made like all the Hamish and Andy shows, and our production company made it, and it was a team. Like Hamish and Andy are the guys, and it's about them and their travels and stuff. But I was a producer on the show, and on it sometimes. I was a producer on the show and contributed to it. And only now I think am I able to really appreciate the fact that I was part of that team, as opposed to at the time I was full of other weird thoughts and not able to truly appreciate it. But looking back on it, it's like I had a helpful part in that team.
Yeah. So in all these memories, what did you believe about yourself in those stories, in those memories?
That I was enough. That I was enough.
There you go. All you did was find these memories. Yeah. And this isn't a gimmick, right? You actually tapped into your memory and imagination and found these memories when you were enough, right? So you were worthy of love. You were worthy of belonging in those situations. You helped someone helped you. Yeah, you were part of a team, right? You were worthy of connection. And when you find these memories, you hang on to them and you show up from that perspective, oh my God, the courage to be authentic, the courage to go after your goals and dreams, the courage to, you know what, I can do this now. I can go after these things. I no longer have to constantly feel like I'm not good enough or not worthy of that love and belonging and attachment. I have to continually care what others think about me or think I'm responsible for other people's emotions. And I think that's what's happening today, right? Absolutely everyone has a philosophy of life. We just don't realize we have one. And the one we don't realize we have is often caught up in expectations and pressure and of other people or outcomes and constantly thinking we have to, be the pleaser and crave this recognition. But when you find these stories about yourself where you do remind yourself that you are worthy of love and belonging and connection, then you do have this courage to put these goals and dreams and you kind of replace expectations with experimentation, right? If you just showed up from that philosophy of life, as life is just this beautiful experiment, this exploration, this work in progress, or this hero's journey into the unknown where you're allowed to screw it up, you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to fuck it up, you're allowed to get it wrong, you're allowed to be imperfect, right? And that's okay because it also unlocks this possibility, this curiosity, and you tap into imagination and this kind of dreamlike state without any guarantees or promises or expectations. Now, which would you choose as a philosophy of life to go after, right? And let go of all that noise and that interference and that baggage, right? And all you did was just make sense of your life story from your inner fan this time, not your inner critic, right? If we did the same exercise around authenticity and I asked you, the three of you, questions around that, I'd ask you, can you find a memory when you created something, right, for yourself, whether it was a piece of music or you gave a talk or a piece of art or a piece of comedy or you created a show or something like that? Can you find a memory when you actually created something original?
This is a strange one. Our garden at home.
Love that. Yeah. Connection with nature. Yeah. Garden, your garden at home. It's a beautiful answer.
Oh, I love it. It gives me so much satisfaction and joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also because me and Soph have done it together.
Yeah, great example. Yeah.
I created an obstacle course for my kids in the backyard the other day. Also calls an obtagon. Come on, play on the octagon. That was
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just think of like I did this project for a couple of years where I made a different video every month for 2 years, and that was sort of just something that I'd worked on and made. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, can you find a memory when you did something just for yourself, or just for the pure joy of doing it? Yeah. Can you think of something off the top of your head?
I went to Sydney on the weekend to race.
Yeah, beautiful.
I went to race.
Pure joy of experiencing. Yeah, of
unadulterated joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just like for me, being like watching a movie in the dark by myself at home, really loud. That is fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I used to come in here, I haven't done it in a long time, and crank, because my favourite band's The Strokes, and I used to crank that and crank my guitar amp with it, and just have a guilty pleasure of like just playing along with them as loud as I could with it all just up to about 11 on every channel.
Love it. Lastly, probably similar, can you find a memory when you found something very, very funny, even though no one else did? You were the only one who actually found that funny. I'm guessing that's your whole life, Ryan. So you don't get to answer this one.
This is a breakout episode on Ryan's.
I mean, we haven't talked yet about the fact that, so Ben, you've hurt your shoulder at the start of this year quite badly. And it's in a sling most of the time. The sling's coming off tomorrow. But, right now when people watch a video, you can't move your right arm. So about 15 minutes ago, I sort of started laughing internally because it's kind of like...
You asshole.
It's kind of like, when someone's like operating a puppet and they can only operate one arm with the other arm. It's kind of because you can only use your left arm. So I've had to try and resist thinking that you're like, someone's operating you with like anyway,
just one string, broken string.
The most insane thing to say. Sorry, Ben. Yeah.
We did an episode of the podcast the other day, and Ryan revealed something to us which won't be out yet. so I won't say what it is. It was a very serious episode with Dr. Emily, and he said something so unbelievably funny that Em was 20 minutes later, Em was trying to tell something really serious, and I just kept looking away because I was just going to laugh. I couldn't get this image of what Ryan said out of my head, and it was just so funny for the entire episode. And it was so inappropriate to laugh at what Emma was saying. But I was like, it felt like I was back at primary school when something funny happens and you cannot laugh till you get in trouble. It's like the greatest. That's the funniest you'll ever find something. It was like that. I was like, I cannot laugh here, but my gosh, this is good.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. And Josh, do you have one that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head. I'm just going to pass this now.
No, totally cool. Yeah,
I'll have a pass. I remember I can do that.
It's a session live on air, by the way.
Yeah.
So, by the way, my wife, Sally, when I was playing football growing up at Whitefriars College, old collegians, there was a guy on the team called Trout, that was his name, after the fish, and he'd always sign cards for 21st, so forth, if someone broke their leg, when all the rivers and lakes are dry, the trout shall walk the earth. Right, and he'd sign it Trouter, which kind of makes sense. Wow. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but his name's Trouter. Well, anyway, Sally loved that, and she started using that at wedding cards and so forth. And
hang on, what is it? When all the
rivers and lakes are dry, the trout shall walk the earth.
What does that mean?
And she would start. That was her sign off.
It's a status. Right? Trout are the most important species on the planet. Right?
Which makes sense if Trout is saying it.
Correct.
Yeah.
My wife started using it. Yeah. Right. And I said to her, "What the fuck are you doing that for?" Yeah. And she says, "Because the next day when they're opening all their wedding presents and they read this card, they'll be both looking at each other and going, the fuck does this mean?" And the look on there, the expression that she imagined just created this. She would laugh herself silly for like half an hour, right? So that's an example. But I guess the point is when you find that memory of something funny that only you found funny, or you found the memory when you did something just for the pure joy of it, or when you found that memory when you actually created something original, in those memories, those stories, what did you believe about yourself in those memories? What did you believe? If you could turn into a belief system as a consequence of that, I believe.
I believe myself to feel happy in all those moments. I believe that I was very happy.
Yeah, everything else kind of like disappears.
Yeah,
like there's a sense of presence in that. In that, I think.
Yep.
Well, it's not so much that I'm enough, but this is enough. Like these moments are enough.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Josh wins. That's much better.
He was always going to at some stage, right?
He always does. He always finds a way.
Living to your brand positioning, on the brand strategy on you guys. But in those memories, you were living a life true to yourselves. Yeah, you were being authentic. Yeah, you didn't care what others thought about you. You were just being true to yourself in those memories, whether it's through laughter or creating forms of art and so forth, and getting excited by that. In those memories, it's just all we're doing is finding stories and memories to remind yourself and to reframe your belief system. One is that you're worthy of love and connection and belonging, and you're worthy of having the courage to go after your goals and dreams. When you start to reframe your life story from that point of view, you show up from that place. And there's other ways you can do this. Or you can do your inner fan, inner critic, where you just write a one-pager of your life story written by your inner fan and one by your inner critic. You'll realise it's really easy to do one from my inner critic. It's really, really hard to write a one-pager life story written by my inner fan.
Especially, I feel like, as an Australian, where it's like writing about yourself from your inner fan almost feels dirty. It's like you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, that's a global phenom, by the way. Not being hard.
Come on, phenom.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
But now it'll have a run, I reckon, for the next 5 minutes where we're just being harsh on ourselves.
Yep.
And that's what I mean by we have to start to be kinder and gentler to ourselves. We do not understand how powerful compassion is and self-compassion is. And when we apply various forms of compassion, the compassion of curiosity, the compassion of possibility of what we can do with our lives and opportunity, and when we start to apply compassion to our life story, we reframe this inbuilt negative bias designed to protect us and especially compassion and play, just be a lot more playful like we've been doing, right, with these questions. The version that you create for yourself is very different from the version that most of us create from ourselves, where our belief system gets shaped. And that's all the work we're doing literally here is to own our story, right? Embrace our imperfections, embrace our weird, as we say, and then go after what we want in life.
All this stuff you're saying works perfectly to like an event that happened in my life that I look back on and think, I mean, I was 15, I think, so there was no way I was going to be able to apply all the Ben Crowe stuff back then in 1995. But I very vividly remember sitting on a tram. I don't think I've told this story on the podcast, but I was sitting on the tram on the way home, and there were a couple of girls sitting in, because it's like in the tram there's like, well, back then it was like a booth of 4, basically 2 seats facing 2 seats, and I was sitting there with two girls from different schools, didn't know them at all. And I realised after a while they were like trying to imitate what I look like. They're trying to copy what I look like and making fun of my face basically.
Yeah.
And they're piecing themselves and they're trying to imitate what I look like. And it was so harsh, but I was stuck sitting there for the next like 5 minutes with them as they were doing it. And they were laughing so much. And it was like, it won't surprise you to learn that from that point on, I'm like, well, I'm not good looking enough. I didn't consciously think at the time. Well, I did consciously think, I was like, I'm not good looking. Like I'm really not. In fact, what I look like is quite funny.
Yeah.
And an inner critic, that was an inner critic saying that then, but I could go back now as my inner fan would be saying, yeah, well, you're imperfect. Like you don't look perfect. Absolutely not. But you still got a lot of friends. Like you're clearly doing a lot right because despite the fact that these two people think what you look like is really funny, you got a lot of friends and Josh would have seen me as being very successful at school.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you still, maybe that like not inspired, maybe that influenced you to go, well, I'm going to do other things really well. Yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of what an inner fan might do, looking back on your life?
Yeah, just reframe it from a more positive,
yeah.
Optimistic, or just humble way. It is what it is. This is who I am. This is the cards I've been dealt. This is my lot in life. This is what I look like. This is my financial status, and just have it. Is what it is the first place. But
right, accept it, and then
find the positives, find the good, if you like, in our life story.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from the point of view of I guess confidence. Yeah. There's two types of confidences that we all have. There's self-confidence and there's performance confidence, right? As a human doing, we need performance confidence, but as a human being, we need self-confidence. And when people come to me, what they want is performance confidence, but what they need is self-confidence. Because what often hurts us in life or in love or in our activities is not confidence in our skills; it's confidence in ourselves. And the way to performance confidence and the way to self-confidence are actually quite different, right? I think of self-confidence from the point of view, or if you think of the two lenses of shame, perfectionism and scarcity, right? Believing I have to live up to this perfect image or expectations of others, and scarcity is that constant feeling that I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, right? The way to self-confidence is through two pillars, self-acceptance and self-belief, right? If you can develop a strong sense of self-acceptance and self-belief, you can develop self-confidence, right? So, you'd write down A, B, C, right, for simplicity, acceptance and belief leading into confidence, right? And the way to develop those, well, one, Josh and I, we did it last week, right? So, okay, what are the things, Josh, that you're not accepting in your life today, right? And I could ask all of you, I'm not accepting my body image in that situation. I'm not accepting that, someone's got a better financial status than me. You've spoken about it openly, Ryan, in terms of I'm not accepting that, my friends are getting more success than me as we define success kind of externally and so forth. So, and if we want to do it, you can just, brainstorm, okay, what are some of the things that I'm not accepting, either about myself or my life or my place in the world at the moment?
I remember us doing body image.
Yeah.
It was a key one that I was surprised to come up with, but not accepting that I don't have a great body.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You started there and you went to emotional shortcomings and then intellectual shortcomings. Or,
Not that
I'm not accepting change because we're shitting ourselves about uncertainty and so forth.
Not accepting that I'm not as smart as my sort of intellectual heroes.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, any things? It's a quirky thing, right? And you've probably never done it in your life. But
I'm struggling.
If you were just to write a non-acceptance list at the moment, before we write an acceptance list, what would be some of the things that, when you think about it, I'm probably not accepting and therefore I'm focusing on these things that I'm not letting go.
There are still elements, and I think any parent will relate to this. This is not, I'm so blessed to have the family I've got. We have such a great time together, but I think there's still elements of my life I'm not accepting that I don't have access to anymore because parenting takes up all that time, or I'm not, there's still things I'm not accepting that like the things I wish I could do that I just can't do that I see other people doing.
Yeah.
I still haven't properly accepted that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of parents are probably in a similar boat.
100%. Yeah. Ryan, off the top of your head?
I was hoping Hugh would talk longer.
Are you going to call in the pass?
I might call in a pass. I mean, the thing that is coming to mind is, because I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but is it like I'm not good at accepting uncertainty, whether that's the right, if I'm framing that right?
That's exactly right, yeah.
I struggle with uncertainty.
You're not accepting that life is uncertain,
Yes.
unpredictable,
Yes.
and unscripted and vulnerable.
Yeah, I
didn't mean to so emphatically agree with that. Yes.
that is so him. I struggle with uncertainty, and I'm definitely getting better at it, but I still struggle to accept that, which I know to be true, that life is uncertain.
Yeah. So once you can start to identify all these things, because if we don't accept them, we're kind of suffering, right? Because it is what it is. These are the brutal facts of our reality about ourselves or life. Then you can start to write an acceptance list. Okay, from this moment on, what are the things that I'm going to, maybe for the first time ever, just start to accept about myself or about life? Yeah, I'll let Josh kick it off because he's just literally did this exercise last week. So,
Well, I remember the first one was I'll accept that I'm not going to have a six-pack. That's ship sailed. I'm getting too old.
Could still be a goal or a dream, but I'm not going to put pressure on you. It's your acceptance list. It's not mine.
Yeah, except that I'm never going to be as intelligent as my heroes, intellectual heroes.
Yep.
Learn to, with the other ones on the not accepting, I remember change and past failures. And I need to be accepting of that things are always going to change, I think it's a big one. And I've actually subconsciously, because I've been so focused on that mantra, it wasn't something that I've been consciously working over.
Yeah.
But I have actually had some epiphanies about change in the last couple of days as well, which has been really nice as well.
And you say that's quite lightly, but if you actually did those 4 or 5 things, you actually accepted those things in your life, the liberation and the freedom that comes with all this interference that you're not accepting or you don't even realize you're not accepting is it's literally life-changing. It's transformational when we let go. As humans, we suck at acceptance, right? We're living through the most opinionated, judgmental time in living history, right? Driven largely by negative news media with opinions and judgments on this bad and that is bad and so forth, and we've lost the art. And so, the 2 superpower questions that all my clients use is, the first one is, can I do anything about it? Well, if so, take action, right? Make the decision to take action. But if not, can I accept it? As we said last time on the podcast, if we don't accept it, we suffer. So Hugh or Ryan, off the top of your head, just a couple of things from this moment on, I am going to accept that.
I kept thinking about the 80s and 90s as like the world was perfect then. I'm sure, I know it wasn't, but in my mind it was. And I look at all the things I don't love about the world now, and social media and devices and advertising and I haven't accepted. I really just haven't accepted that's the way the world is now.
Yeah.
And so I think I need to accept. I absolutely need to accept the fact that the world has changed because I keep fantasizing about the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, totally. Life's changed. Move on. I need to accept that. Yeah, and not live in nostalgia or denial or the past and so forth. Yeah. And by the way, almost every negative emotion is a consequence of living in the past, right, which you can't control, or the future, which you also can't control. So, letting go of those and getting more present. Yeah. Ryan, for you?
I think, I guess there's accepting that life is uncertain and that will always be uncertain, but also I think accepting that I'll never be like the perfect ideal friend or the perfect son. I think because I know I feel like I have a lot of I could be a lot better, and I'm a little bit hard on myself just privately. I'm a bit hard, and actually I'll add to that the perfect partner, like romantic partner with Jam. I think there's a lot. I have a lot of work to do on myself to be better at those 3 things, to be a better son, better friend, better partner. But I think I probably need to accept that I'll never be perfect, or even I'll never be as good as other people I look at. I can be a lot better, but I'll never nail it.
Yeah. Well, purely the word perfect is still getting caught up in perfectionism of trying to live up to these false expectations or the imaginary, unrealistic expectations of others from a perfection point of view. But in developing that acceptance list, you're accepting you're imperfect. That's self-acceptance, right? That's all it is, accepting that I'm imperfect. Right? What you just did before that was also developing a belief system to believe that you're worthy. And when you can accept that you're imperfect, that's self-acceptance, and you can believe you're worthy, well, that's self-belief. Right? You've just done the 2 most fundamental pillars to develop this self-confidence, right? As a human being, that is. Before, you don't have to do anything, right? You can just believe that you are worthy to have a crack in life, to be in the arena. Yeah. And if you can remind yourself of those things, we don't get caught up in obsessing what people think about us and live up to this perfect image, because you're accepting it is what it is. That's why humility is such a superpower. Yeah. And then if you can believe you're worthy, from that foundation, then you set these goals and dreams, because you're not going to placate yourself and just, accept these situations. You've got these goals and dreams, and that's where motivations come in. And especially since the pandemic was the biggest shift that we're observing. One is just understanding these pillars of self-confidence and finding them and identifying them and making them part of your DNA. The second one is finding motivation from an intrinsic point of view. And that's what I'm hoping coming out of COVID is the great opportunity for the human race. Because there's two types of motivations. There's intrinsic and extrinsic. Yeah, intrinsic is within, internal, and extrinsic is external. Intrinsic you can control. Extrinsic for the most part you can't control. There's so many things in life you can't control, right? But those who are winning in life at the moment are redefining success from an intrinsic point of view, not an extrinsic point of view. And pre-pandemic, the whole world, in my opinion, because we don't know who we are and not owning our story and not doing the work to own our story, we're going external rather than internal. You'll never answer that question, who am I? You'll never find that human being, externally. And if you try, you'll just get distracted by extrinsic motivations. And the big five that are sabotaging the whole world right now, the first one is money. Once I make that kind of money, then I'll be enough, then I'll be worthy, then I'll be validated. The second one is materialism. And by the way, I've got a client in New York who said to me once he made his third billion, his dad would love him. Right? How sad is that, right? Lucky he's wealthy, right? The second one is materialism. Once I get that car, that house, that handbag, then I'll be enough, yeah? Then I'll be worthy. The third one is corporate status. Once I get that promotion, well, then I'll be enough. Or the fourth one is social status. Once I'm famous, then I'll be enough. And the fifth one is this craving of recognition, this obsessing and caring what people think about me, because now I want you guys to give me what I'm not prepared to give myself, unconditional love, right? But if you go the other way and you tap into your intrinsic motivations, and extrinsic motivations aren't bad in and of themselves, because we need money to live and we need a house to live under. Right. But seriously, and this is, I do a lot of work in the finance industry globally, and since the Royal Commission in Australia, but also globally, there's a whole generation of 50 plus alpha males who have woken up right now and they've achieved it, they're not fulfilled, they've been extrinsically motivated, right? They've got this money and status and stuff, but it's to the detriment of their intrinsic motivations, things that really light them up. And their kids have all grown up and turned 18 and left school and left home, going to college, and they're all thinking about, geez, what just happened to the last 2 decades, right, in terms of my perspective, yeah. But if you can tap into your intrinsic motivations and redefine success from that perspective, you don't have to wait to be happy. You don't have to wait to be successful. You literally fall in love with the process of putting these goals and dreams out in the universe and then chasing them down. And the 3 categories of intrinsic motivations that we're noticing are having the greatest impact, and for people who are flourishing rather than languishing, or people having energy, we spoke about at the start here, rather than lethargy, is the intrinsic motivation around play, around purpose, and around potential, right? Now, if I was trying to do a session with you guys to get into flow, it would be the same 3 things, or relatively derivatives of flow, and being present and autonomy and agency thrown on top of that. If I was trying to do a session to explain to you the 3 most important reasons why anyone goes to work, it's the same 3 things, right? Connecting with a feeling of play, being motivated by play and curiosity and having fun and games and so forth, and a sense of purpose, doing something that matters, finding meaning in your work or in your life in some way, shape or form. And my favorite is potential, right? The possibility of just seeing where I'm at, yeah, and getting out of my comfort zone to realize my potential and the possibility of whatever gifts I've been given. Now, when you tap into those 3 motivations in some way, shape or form, when you tap into your motivations in that way and you set goals and dreams off the back of those, it's incredibly exciting, right? And you're in more control of connecting with your intrinsic motivations. And often when I'm working with an athlete before a major final, whether it's a golf tournament or a tennis grand slam or whatever, connecting with our intrinsic motivations is incredibly powerful, right? And I think Ash said that in the semi-finals press conference, right? When she was just getting, the press conference was just crazy. And how does it feel, Ash, to be so close to success and holding up this trophy after all these years and winning all this money? And she kind of said in her own words, and she goes, wow. She goes, look, that's your definition of success. It's not mine. My definition of success is relationships, memories, experiences, getting out of my comfort zone, trialing new things, being part of a team, finding purpose in my work, right? I focus on those things. I can control those things. I can't control whether I'm going to win the Australian Open in 2 days' time, but those things I can control.
God, how proud were you when she said that?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, I was looking around the room, and half the journalists were thinking to themselves, like, the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah.
The other half were saying, oh, I can't write that. There's no hype and controversy and expectations and pressure I can find from that.
Yeah.
And I just find that's the opportunity to identify what our intrinsic motivations are, show up from that place and redefine success from that place. You've still got goals and dreams that you go after them. You don't determine success whether you get there or not, and you separate your self-worth from what you achieve in life. And that's what I mean by the connection between the human being and the human doing, and from an intrinsic motivation point of view. And it's really exciting when we tap into our intrinsic motivations like that.
Wow.
Well, I got 2 things that I wanted to just. The first one's quite flippant. The second one, I'd like to sort of finish on if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
First one, has anyone ever told you look like Guy Pearce?
No.
Do you guys see it?
I'll take Guy Pearce though.
I'm not saying Guy Pearce.
Oh, I just really like just looking at you for
Right,
2
taking it
hours.
back.
I've really started to see Guy Pearce.
I'm a Guy Pearce fan. Like,
I
yeah.
love Guy Pearce.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
What's your
No,
favorite?
there is a bit of Guy.
What's your favorite Guy Pearce movie?
I mean, it's Jack. It's not his movie, but the
Jack
TV
Irish.
series, Jack Irish series. I love. I love his work in. He's the cop in.
L.A. Confidential.
No, I was going to go later on. Animal Kingdom. Loved him in Animal Kingdom.
Anyway, I definitely see a strong
Is that
response.
how we're finishing?
I wanted to sort of ask a question, I guess, to finish.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm maybe pushing the friendship here, but I want to ask you to do a third vulnerable. If your dad could see what you're doing right now, if he was aware of the stuff you'd be doing, and how do you reckon he would feel? How would you, do you think about that? Like, how wonderful it would be for your dad to see what you're putting out into the world right now?
Yeah. I don't think about it in that context, but I do live every day to try and make him proud.
Wow.
And my best friend who was killed in a car accident when he was 21, Simon Strike, I dedicate my life to him as well. And Damien Hill, another best friend who passed away the night before my 40th birthday. And Rob Dixon, one of my very first clients who won Survivor in Australia, who unfortunately was killed in South Africa filming with the AFL with his 2 little kids. I kind of dedicate my life to these people who have helped, in my opinion, shape who I am, whether it was their laughter and their humour, whether it was their values, but it's kind of how they made me feel about myself. And, you mentioned their images, right? When you're feeling that vertical relationship and you just remind yourself of these heroes or angels or role models that, no one in this world can do anything in this world on their own. We all need people in our corner, and they don't even have to be alive anymore, to kind of be a part of your journey. And it just makes you feel that you're not alone, right? And I often say to myself, what would my dad do in this situation, or what would Strikey do, or so forth? And then you continually ask yourself, what would these people do? Your mentors and your advisory board and your team can be exponential kind of forever when you find these people that, there's bits of you guys that I'll emulate in my life, right? Whether it's not taking life too seriously, or, being interested, not interesting, or, trying to, I heard Josh say recently, he just loves how people, when asked a question, the people who just often don't rush into it and often, have a pause and be really considered. And I listen to you say that, I go, I love that. Yeah, I want a little bit of that as well, and not feel like I got to race into answers. It's a work in progress for me, Josh. But so you take little elements of people who might say something and so forth, and that's kind of life, really. You take the best bits of everyone, you throw away the bad bits, you keep the good bits, and what's left is the sum of who you are in terms of your authenticity and your role models along the way. And I think if we can all have little elements of that, or we're still authentic, but it doesn't mean I can't take a bit of Ryan Shelton with me as well.
And what have you taken? Like,
clip that up, Bridge.
Just that very last bit.
Just that last bit. Yeah,
On repeat, is that your new speed dial, by the way?
yeah,
Is that
that'd
your
be
new
great.
memory?
Yeah, so just take a little bit of it. Yeah.
What have
Thanks,
you?
mate.
One more from me. So, what have you taken from your dad then? Most specifically, like how would you describe your dad, your memory of your dad, and how does that try and come out in you now, or how do you try and emulate that now?
Oh, 2 things off the Richter scale. One was he was an incredible larrikin, right? He was always finding lightness in any situation, incredible sense of humour, and so forth. And then just this incredible care for others and would light up the room deliberately just to make others feel good about themselves. That combination of, laughter and lightheartedness and larrikinism on one extreme, but incredibly caring about others at the same time. So if it's two elements of Dad that I could just take a little, 1% with me on my journey, that would be the two things. Yeah, I absolutely try to. My best is bring that lightheartedness to, and that's why everything we're doing at Mojo is just to simplify complexity with a lightheartedness element. And I believe that's your formula with the Imperfects as well. Right? You're tackling some really heavy, complex subjects, but you're doing it with an element of compassion and humor when necessary, and kind of elements, so we don't take ourselves so seriously and so forth, and we can kind of reframe these elements along the way. I think your formula is perfect for for what's required today, and how much negativity is in the world in terms of as soon as we open up news media or our own internal negative reptilian bias. Well, how do you overcompensate that the other way, all right? So you have to do that with bringing an element of lightness and laughter and as well as caring elements to others as well. So yeah, there'd be definitely those two things I'm trying to bring.
There's so many questions I've held back from asking just because people will get the answers if they do your incredible app. Like there's so many things I was like, oh, no, but it's all there. Like everything we've discussed today is in the app. Things around, people might be saying, well, how do we work out what our values are? All that stuff is in the app. So highly, highly recommend it.
We'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
What's crazy is the number one or two reasons why people don't do this work, right? So thank God for your podcast, right? Is they say they're too busy or they don't have the time. Now, the research coming out of the US and UK at the moment is we spend an hour 50 every day worrying, right? Stressed and anxious. An hour 50, right? That's 13 hours a week. Yeah. That's 52 hours a month. You think about that for a sec, right? 13 hours a week, like seriously?
Wow.
And yet the people who are just kicking ass, and definitely ones doing our course, spend less than 30 minutes a week investing in themselves. So if you're in investments and trades, I would say, righto, what if you could get that back? What if you get that 13 hours of worry and stress and anxiety back for 30 minutes a week? Right? Just win Friday morning for 30 minutes investing in yourself. Like, would you take that trade? Right? Would you make that trade, right?
Yeah.
Of course you would, yeah. So I just think those who are leaning in and doing the work are also, but it doesn't have to be our course, Hugh. There's so many other incredible resources out there available just to make sense of your story and work out who you are, and then work out what you want and work out how to get there. We're all in search of the same two things, right? Confidence and happiness. And there's different ways in, and when the pupil is ready, the preacher will come, and it might come through a podcast, The Imperfects, it might come through a documentary on Amazon, it might come through a course, Mojo, it might come through a mentor, right? It might come from a movie. It doesn't really matter as long as we're open and curious to leaning in and learning about ourselves in that way, and letting go of, belief systems and stories which aren't helpful. And you guys did it so simply with those questions that we did today, right? So that's the opportunity, and I'm hopeful, Hugh, that over the journey, some of these principles, we didn't even get into performance mindset, gets into the education system, to teach these kids to identify that they actually have the power to decide, the power to choose what version of events they get to decide their mindset, their attitude, and their self-worth. Most of us don't even realize we have that power to reframe our life story. We just think, oh, that's the truth. That's our story. And then we go on.
You're stuck with it.
We're stuck with it as well. You've actually got the power here.
Yeah.
Just that is life-changing for people when they realize that fact, right? And, you read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which, his whole first chapter is based on, I didn't actually realize that I had a choice. I could actually decide to let go of my judging mind. Or Andre Agassi, the reason his book's so successful, right? The one thing in that book is he said, what changed for me forever was when I realized I had a choice. I could actually decide. Right? And it's the same for all of us. And that's what I mean by some of these principles need to be pushed down so we don't get caught up in the conditions of our life and creating these vertical relationships everywhere we go. We can be more observant, and through that objective judgment and self-compassion, we can come up with another version that actually serves us. Then I think we've got the courage to go after these goals and dreams, or the courage to be disliked, and the courage to get up and get up again, which is, resilience in a way. So
imagine, I'm so jealous of Sal. Imagine just being married to Ben and just constantly just hearing this stuff all the time.
If I even
It'd be awesome.
If I even bring up the word vulnerability, imperfection, I just get shot down like beyond beliefs. I don't get it. Don't worry. If you ask Sally or the three boys about this topic, they'd give you a very different interpretation.
But Sally is perfect, isn't she? So,
Yeah.
so you just need to do the
in
work.
every way, Ryan. Well said. Beautifully said.
Well, I think that was just incredible.
I'm going to listen to it right now.
Ben, thank you so much. Your course and your app we'll link to, but it is, I just can imagine people just scurrying to their show notes to download that because it is brilliant. And like Hugh said, everything we just talked about is in there. So good to see you. I hope your shoulder heals soon. But we'll see you really, really soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, mate.
No worries. Loved every minute of it. Thanks, guys.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton, and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin.